Every empire begins with the same belief, that it is stronger, smarter, and somehow exempt from history. Each generation convinces itself that past collapses were different, caused by mistakes that could never happen again. But history does not operate on hope or confidence. It operates on patterns. Across thousands of years, civilizations rise and fall, following a rhythm that never changes. Collapse does not begin with invasion, famine, or disaster. It begins quietly, inside the collective mindset. Success creates comfort, and comfort reduces vigilance. Awareness slowly fades. Early warnings always exist, but they appear subtle and easy to dismiss. People stop questioning the system that sustains them and assume stability is permanent. And the moment belief replaces discipline, the cycle of collapse has already started. Every powerful civilization is forged in struggle, when survival demands unwavering and shared discipline. Constant pressure of scarcity forces efficiency, while shared hardship binds the populace together. However, widespread prosperity subtly begins to reshape the collective psychology in deeply dangerous ways. Expectations shift dramatically, moving away from achievement toward the assumption of continuous ease. What was once earned through sacrifice transforms in the public mind into an expected right. Pervasive comfort dulls the memory, and the foundational struggle that built everything is forgotten. Consumption begins its quiet ascendancy, gradually replacing the necessary and vital spirit of contribution. Standards of excellence quietly soften as life becomes easier, a shift that few notice. What appears as an unassailable display of strength is, internally, the erosion of resilience. As societies reach material comfort, the established moral boundaries that defined them begin to migrate. This change in ethical gravity is never a sudden event that shocks the conscience. It occurs gradually, a creeping normalization of behavior that would have been unthinkable before. Small compromises feel harmless in isolation, especially when rewarded with short-term and immediate gain. Foundational rules are reinterpreted with flexibility, and shortcuts are reframed as evidence of intelligence. The populace stops asking what is right and focuses instead only on immediate convenience. Corruption no longer possesses the power to shock, becoming instead a predictable and expected feature. Language itself softens reality, creating justifications that make unethical behavior much easier to rationalize. Judgment collapses long before institutions fail, yet by then, the decay feels entirely normal. Healthy civilizations rely on a bedrock of clarity, sustained by shared values and truth. Declining societies replace this essential clarity with an overwhelming volume of noise and distraction. Public debate becomes a constant feature, yet any genuine understanding becomes increasingly rare. Pursuit of shallow entertainment overwhelms education, and the calm deliberation of reason is displaced. Attention fragments into 1,000 competing arguments, a state of conflict designed for heat. The populace no longer possesses the desire to seek objective truth, preferring existing biases. Essential unity dissolves into a cacophony of competing narratives, each striving to be louder. As psychological noise increases exponentially, the fundamental reality of the situation becomes harder to discern. Without a shared understanding of reality, the capacity for meaningful collective action completely collapses. Trust is the invisible, yet essential, structural element that holds all complex societies together. Citizens lose faith in leadership, and in turn, the leadership loses faith in institutions. These institutions then lose trust in the people they serve, and suspicion spreads throughout. The spirit of cooperation slowly gives way to a pervasive atmosphere of personal self-preservation. Individuals withdraw from shared civic responsibility, choosing instead to focus only on personal survival. Genuine dialogue fades into silence as fear increases, and accountability is replaced by quiet. Every component of the system begins operating defensively, sacrificing efficiency for the illusion of safety. Once foundational trust is broken, repairing it becomes an undertaking of extreme and lasting difficulty. A society without mutual trust cannot sustain the enormous complexity required for modern existence. Psychological decay eventually reaches the economy, where its destructive effects accelerate with frightening speed. Unrestrained spending increases while fiscal prudence disappears, allowing debt to accumulate in the background. The currency itself begins to lose its intrinsic meaning, becoming instead a mere abstraction. Leaders attempt to delay the inevitable consequences of their actions, relying on borrowing and printing. For a short period, this elaborate illusion appears to function, and markets respond superficially. A false sense of confidence returns just long enough to effectively silence remaining warnings. However, artificial prosperity built on debt and illusion can never truly defeat economic reality. The longer the necessary correction is delayed, the more destructive the eventual collapse becomes. Financial collapse is rarely a sudden event. It is a crisis ignored until unavoidable. Every cycle of decline reaches a critical point when the collective delusion of denial fails. Official numbers stop aligning with tangible reality, and the complex systems visibly begin faltering. The people sense this profound shift immediately, an intuitive understanding that precedes any comprehension. Unearned confidence disappears faster than it was formed, and widespread optimism turns into silence. This moment feels terrifyingly sudden, yet it is the inevitable consequence of decades of neglect. Warnings once ignored now seem painfully obvious to everyone, and deep regret replaces arrogance. Foundational trust cannot be instantly restored by decree, no matter how urgent the need. Recognition of the crisis spreads with a speed that far outpaces any genuine understanding. Once the harsh reality of the situation is acknowledged, there is no return to ignorance. When belief in the system's permanence collapses, a wave of profound panic spreads rapidly. Financial markets react with pure emotion, moving violently before the actual facts are known. Individuals rush simultaneously to protect their most vital assets: security, resources, and life savings. Each protective action taken immediately amplifies the fear in the next, creating a chain reaction. Systems designed to stabilize society suddenly transform into powerful and overwhelming accelerants of fear. Last vestiges of mutual trust vanish overnight, and the essential coordination required to manage fails. At this stage, the collapse begins to feed entirely on its own internal momentum. The historical record documents this precise moment repeatedly, with a striking and terrifying consistency. The resulting panic and loss of control ultimately cause more damage than any invasion could. Once the force of panic takes hold, the interconnected systems of society fail together. Financial institutions weaken simultaneously, while the complex supply chains that sustain the population fracture. The entire structure of civilization, built upon mutual trust, loses its essential support simultaneously. Small failures converge rapidly into a total breakdown, a cascade that overwhelms all recovery efforts. Complex societies require voluntary cooperation to function, and the intense fear of the moment destroys. Great empires rarely fall from a single event. They collapse from the accumulated weight. What once appeared as an unshakable feature of the world suddenly reveals its profound fragility. The entire system begins to collapse inward, a process of disintegration that occurs very fast. And what is left in the immediate aftermath of this systemic break is absolute silence. The moment of collapse serves a final purpose, revealing truths that prosperity had successfully concealed. Convenient excuses and elaborate rationalizations disappear instantly, and the comforting illusions are stripped away. The surviving remnants of society are forced to confront the truth of what they became. Yet, the collapse of a civilization is not merely an ending. It is a reset. From the ruins of the old order, a new discipline slowly returns, driven by necessity. The spirit of shared purpose replaces the previous culture of consumption, and clarity returns. History does not administer its punishments randomly. It teaches its most profound lessons relentlessly. The same cycle of ascent and decay will repeat until its ultimate lesson is understood, and the future depends entirely on one single question. Will this time truly be different?